I think finding your passion is one of the greatest preoccupations of my generation. It's become a buzzword. You see it on blog posts, you see it on social media posts, YouTube, clearly. We can't seem to get away from the word passion. And I think a lot of times the reason that we struggle so much with this word, the reason that we wrestle so much to find what our passion is because at times we don't really understand what the word means. Hi, I'm John, and this is what I learned about passion from studying Spanish for 6 years. So, to give some background, I started studying Spanish when I was in high school, like many of us. I started as a sophomore, and since I was actually homeschooled, I had this set of DVDs that I could watch that were a recording of an actual classroom. So I could essentially follow all the same curriculum and the same homework assignments, tests, whatever, that this specific class was doing. It was just remotely by DVD. And I had a phenomenal teacher. I had 2 phenomenal teachers for both years that I took Spanish. And it came really naturally to me. I really liked it, I picked it up easily, and I wanted to continue studying it. But as time went on, Spanish got harder, right? You start getting into things like the pronouns, the indirect and direct objects, and you start realizing, wow, learning a foreign language is really hard. So after my junior year, I took a bit of a break from studying Spanish. I took other classes that I needed to graduate, and then I went to college, and I kind of forgot about Spanish for a while. And it wasn't until my junior year of college that I started taking Spanish again. Because I realized I still needed language credits, and I already had all this Spanish under my belt from high school. I was already pretty okay at it, so I figured, let's do that. So I started over from the basics, and I pretty much aced Spanish 10 through 10-20, because I already had such a strong grasp on the fundamentals. I knew, as I studied and I learned Spanish, that this was definitely something that I wanted to continue doing. This is something that really stuck with me. Of course, like any language learner, I encountered frustrations. I would come across grammar concepts that I just couldn't understand, or I would be just overwhelmed by the sheer breadth of vocab that I needed to learn and hadn't learned. Side note, vocabulary is my least favorite part of learning any language, not just Spanish. So this was especially hard for me. So by the time I finished college, I actually ended up minoring in Spanish and English. And I was really proud of how far I'd come so far, but I knew I still had a long way to go. And that's why I live in Spain. What you are seeing right now is for one thing, a very bland off-white apartment bedroom. But it is situated in Madrid, Spain, which is where I live. And that's where I've lived for the past 6 months, working as an English teaching assistant. I work at a high school here, and I'm what's known as a language and culture assistant, which means I assist in the classroom, doing part-time hours, and I teach full immersion English classes to many different students. I could certainly make a separate video on just the teaching aspect because it's been such a big learning experience. But I want to focus on the main reason I came here, which was to continue learning Spanish. So I knew pretty early on that Spanish was one of my passions. But it's not because I was always driven to study Spanish every single day. That is certainly not the case. I don't read in Spanish every day. I don't watch Spanish Netflix series every day. I don't practice Spanish conversation every day. I mean, it's my job to speak English. So in spite of living here in Spain, I definitely speak more English for my day-to-day than I do Spanish. But the way I found out that Spanish was one of my passions was that it was just something that never left me. There were so many times, looking back at high school, where I would be sitting at my desk at night trying to study and figure out something like direct and indirect objects. And I would be looking at this grammar rule and thinking, how am I ever going to learn this language? I can't do this. There's no way I could ever learn this. In spite of those fears, in spite of those doubts, something inside of me wouldn't let me give up. There were even times where I said, I quit. I give up. I can't do this. But even in the midst of saying that, even as the words left my mouth or ran through my mind, I knew that wasn't true. I knew that something within me wouldn't let me quit. And it's been true. That something within me just made me keep going. And even though there were times where I did not like studying Spanish, I didn't want to, I was tired of it, and even times where I took hiatus, it was always something that stuck with me, that was in the back of my mind. Something that I always wanted to do was become fluent in Spanish, and so that's one of the main reasons I chose to take this job as a language assistant, was so that I'd have the opportunity to immerse myself in a Spanish-speaking country and finally achieve those dreams of fluency that I'd had for so long. As an update on that Spanish learning journey, I can definitely say my Spanish is the absolute best that it has ever been, and I still have a long way to go. That's usually what I tell people when they ask me, how's your Spanish? To me, passion isn't always being excited to do something. Passion is not always looking forward to doing what you want it to do, which sounds kind of oxymoronic when you think about it, because it's like, why would you not want to do something that you want to do? But I feel like that's true sometimes. And I feel like I'm not the only one who feels that way. Where there's something that you know you want to do in the long run, but in the short run, you just don't feel like doing it. And many times, Spanish has been that way for me. But to me, passion is not always the feeling of butterflies in your stomach or the nervous excitement you get when you're about to do something that you love. And passion isn't always blood, sweat, and literal tears at times. Sometimes, passion is the quiet strength from within that pushes you towards your goal, even though you feel like you can't take another step towards it. Even though you feel completely incapable of achieving that goal, of climbing that mountain, of crossing that finish line. Something within you just tells you, keep going. It's like a force that wells up inside your chest and just pulls you towards the object of your passion, sometimes regardless of whether you even want to go or not. And it's that very thing, that quiet strength, that undying desire sitting deep within the bottom of my heart, I guess, that's kept me going and wanting to learn Spanish. There are other things in my life that have kind of had the same effect on me, and one of those is music. I've never intentionally stopped playing guitar. I've never stopped listening to music. I've never stopped wanting to make new music or play music. It's always been something that stuck with me, even when things like photography and board game design and videography came and went. So it's the things that stick with you. It's the things that you can't give up, even though you want to, even though you say that you give up. It's those things that you'll never truly give up. Those are your passions, I think. And I think those are the very things that you need to keep an eye out for. You need to watch out for those things and then pursue them. Once you realize that you found something that you just can't leave and that won't leave you, that you're inseparable from, you found something very special and you need to focus on it. This is what studying Spanish for 6 years and living in Spain has taught me about passion. And hopefully it can teach you something as well. Thanks for watching.